Hello, I'm Matt, and this Loxley Quality Time tutorial is to help you with this painting, Ancient Landmark from the Kachilio collection. If you haven't already watched our techniques tutorial videos, please have a look at them before starting your project. They give you some valuable information about painting with the quality time range and help you get the most out of your quality time. This video contains specific information about your chosen painting, but we assume that you're already familiar with the general techniques covered in our tutorial videos. Ancient Landmark features Smeaton's Tower, which is now situated in a prominent position on the Plymouth Hoe since it retired in 1877. The lighthouse is a Grade 1 listed building, which was built in 1759 to warn sailors passing the dangerous Eddystone rocks on the Devon coast. There are many steps which take you to the top where you can enjoy magnificent views, as well as seeing the lamp room where originally 24 candles were used for the light. First of all, on this particular picture, I'm going to get straight into this, so I'm going to start with the red, and I've mixed this particular shade using yellow and red mixture, and just to get the right shade of red, because the red in this pack is quite dark. We're just keeping to the lines here, following the picture in the instruction guide. What I'm doing, I'm cutting down this edge just to get a neat line, but what's really important is that the brush strokes follow the curve of the lighthouse and they go horizontally, so you're following the natural line of the construction of the stones going round like this. This is really important about the brush strokes because they'll be seen even in the finished picture. Make sure they're going all the same way, same direction. Don't worry if it looks a bit patchy on this stage 1, which we're doing now, because by the time you do stage 2 it'll look less patchy, and you'll notice that like here where the brick marks are, they're coming through, showing through the red. Again, just to get this edge, just go down this way. I normally turn the picture round when I'm painting, but I'm keeping it in this angle just for the camera. Finish with your brush strokes going in that direction, like that. And we're doing this for all the red areas. In a delicate area near the edge, I'll just take my time, little delicate brush strokes, and then when you get into the bigger areas like this, you can do bigger, quicker brush strokes. Right, now that's the red finished. I'm going to start on the sky. Now there is a tutorial video on painting skies which gives you much more information and help on this. And again, I'm keeping to the sky area, so I've gone round the buildings and I'm keeping off the lighthouse. I'm just putting in the blue bits of the sky first, the clouds next. That'll be a paler mixture. I'm just having a break from doing the sky. Doesn't matter too much what order you do the stage 1 in, but I'm just going to put some white onto the white part of the lighthouse. And again, the lines will show through. You can put a bit of texture in the paint, but as long as it's going the right direction, or it's finishing up in the direction of the stones. And then I can start working on the sky. Here I can actually vary the shade of cloud by just sort of partly mixing on the canvas. So I'm just getting different shades of white and by different amounts of blue. You can actually just put bits of white in it. No two skies are the same in real life, and it's the same when you're painting. I'm going to put the sky in the glass bit of the lighthouse there because you can actually see it through the glass. I'm actually very passionate about this particular picture. A couple of years ago, we went down to Plymouth and I'd always been interested in the lighthouse, heard about it, so we took the children, and it's open to the public. You can climb right to the top. There's 93 steps right up to the lamp house. You can see the sleeping quarters and all around the lighthouse. It's very fascinating. You can leave the texture in of the clouds here. This makes it look more realistic. If you want to change from doing the sky, you could do a bit on the buildings and come back to the sky. For the stage 1 of these buildings at the bottom, it's a very pale red. So it's a very small amount of red mixed with lots of white. As you're mixing the paint, you can never be afraid to go too pale because the colours always mix slightly darker than you would imagine. And you can try it just on a small area first to make sure you're okay with the colour. And again, the outlines will show through your paint mixture, so you can see where to paint in more detail later. And then before I get back into the sky, I'm just going to do some green of the grass. The green is quite a strong colour, so I'm going to mix some yellow with it just to make it a bit more interesting and not too overbearing. There is information which will be very interesting on a tutorial specifically on painting trees and vegetation, which covers things like the grass. What I'm doing here is I'm doing it quite quickly, but putting it in the direction the grass is growing, which gives the appearance of the grass sticking up in the air. I'll just do the weather vane and this part at the top. I'm just using just the yellow as it is, no mixture. So I'm doing the bushes next, and the shrubbery down here, and mixed a brown using green and red. What you'll notice is there's two bushes here, and I'm painting them individually so they remain as two bushes. By adding a bit of white to the mix, it produces a different shade of the same colour. I'm going to do stage 2 of the red before I finish the top here with stage 1. So I'm mixed up a red. I'm just going over the exact same area. Again, the brush strokes are following the contour of the building, and it's coming up a much nicer red, more vibrant and less washy looking. Whereas tend to work down the picture, so I'm not working into wet paint, I'm working away from wet paint, and by the time I come back up to the top the paint has dried. You can do a second coat of white, but it's not always needed. Okay, so I'm now going to work on the top of the lighthouse, which is a very minute percentage of blue with white, and I'm going to try and pick up some of the shading by using different variations of the blue and white mix. So here, this in the middle is almost all white. Add a bit more blue, and then coming across to the area over here using a slightly darker blue. Gives it dimension, and then darker again and down here. And again, the railings will show through your paint, so you can pick them up later when you need to. And just put some white back in here. It's a paler shade. Then you can use just pure white on this side, but there will still be a tiny bit of blue in your brush. And then we're doing the same here, so there's more shade of blue this side. You can just add more blue or add more white, just till you feel comfortable that you've got it right. I'm now going to do stage 2 on the building. On the colour guide it's 60% red and 40% blue, but I'm actually going to add some white to it as well. You can just put it on that colour or add a bit of white. You can even add a bit of water to it as well, just to make it less intense, so you can get different shades on the buildings. I'm doing stage 2 on the grass next. For this I'm just using pure green. I'm not covering the whole area, but again I'm working in the direction as the grass, following nature's flow, so it looks like blades of grass growing up here. Going to do stage 2 on these trees, and again keeping them as separate bushes or trees or whatever they are. Just makes it look more interesting. I want to do a bit more detail on the building, so I'm going to add a bit more. Now the paint's dried, I'm going to go back in and darken some of these areas. This is stage 2 of just using the stage 2 mix, but just slightly more red. So it's mainly white with red, but just a bit more intense than I did at the first stage. I didn't get it quite right. And you can revisit any of these colours anytime and just build it up until you're happy with it. Now I'm just working into the sky. Once the paint's dry from the first stage 1, you can go back in and put more white in. Here I'm actually using the brush strokes to give the clouds dimension, actually make it 3D with the texture of the paint, just putting more paint on the brush, but again just working gently, always with the tip of the brush, and just building these layers up. I'm now working on the shadows, stage 3 of the painting, and I've mixed up my shadow paint. There is more detail on painting shadows, which is covered in the tutorial, a separate video on painting shadows, which gives you more information on this technique. I'm going to leave the railings a bit paint light in between them, because with this dark colour you might lose them completely. You can also use this colour to put back in some of the detail of the edge of the lighthouse that may have got lost. This area here, I've not loaded the brush up with too much paint, so there's less paint on the brush now. It's almost dry, and I'm just smudging this across and then loading it for the finer detail. You put in the edge of the lines back in here. Now the other thing I'm going to do is add some water to the shadow to make it not so intense inside the lighthouse area here, and some of these lighter areas on here. You'll notice you've got the direction of the sun on your instruction guide, so the shadows are determined by the direction of the sun. There's a darker side and a lighter side, which is seen quite distinctively in this picture, and I'm going to use water with the paint, so it's like a watered down version of the shadow paint for the shadow on the actual lighthouse, because they've got a dark colour anyway. So if you're using a very intense shadow colour, it could lose a lot of the detail. Doesn't matter what colour is there originally, the shadow mix just goes over, following the direction of the stonework still, even with the shadow. What you can do after this is dried, you can darken your shadow by going over it again. Best to go lighter and then work darker, you can't do it the other way. And then I'm going to use some of the shadow mix to put in some of the detail on the lighthouse. So you actually draw some of the stones in, so it gives you an impression of the stone. So with the very tip of the brush, you're just doing really fine lines. It's just a suggestion that there's the stones going around. Then with an even more watered down version, I'm just going to blend some of the shadow in, so my brush isn't too loaded and it's tickling the surface. I love the shadow. It's when you're putting the shadows in on a picture, it just gives it so much more dimension, almost brings the picture to life. I'm just working this a bit darker now. I've got confident with the shade I need, and making these little hatch doors because they're in the shade as well. Just working in some shadows on these buildings at the bottom. So it's all that's marked in blue on your colour guide. It indicates where you need to put the shadows. Now I've finished my shadows and I'm happy with those. I'm going on to stage 4, which is the highlights, and this just sets it off again because it gives it another dimension, and it's just basically where the sun is catching different objects. So it's just small dabs of pure white paint. What I'm actually going to do is just put some on the lamp here of the glass, just to make it look like real glass. So you can see the reflections there. I'm now going to go down to this rim here, which is where the sun's catching it. And then I'm now going to go down to the first red section of the lighthouse. Just do a little bit where the sun's catching it, just a faint bit here. What I've done here on the white is actually put it on very thick so that it stands out against the white. Now I've got some highlights on these buildings at the back. When you're doing highlights, it's important to keep loading your brush. I've really enjoyed doing this, and I hope that you get out of your quality time as much as I've got out of doing this tutorial. Goodbye.